In one word, expected. We were expecting a retaliation of some sort. Interestingly, that retaliation will end up hurting China on the long term. What we're doing here is not aggressive. We're not trying to hurt anybody economically. We're trying to protect ourselves in the United States. We've had a long-standing trade imbalance that damaged U.S. industry and U.S. businesses. We are running a heavy deficit with government spending. We need to fix this. And this is the easiest way to fix it at this point. And it's a necessary move. It's a move. And unfortunately, what happened in the past 48 hours should have happened incrementally over years. But nobody had the political will and capability to get it done. And unfortunately, we have today on the 11th hour to make drastic changes and take drastic measures to fix our failing economy at this point.
Failing economy of China. Uh, Definitely
Of the
this.
United States.
Yes. Now,
Yeah.
if I may ask you here, The Economist describes Trump's policies as self-harm that could strengthen China's long-term position. What's your take on that?
See, that article that you've mentioned looks at the world economy in an adversary position. We do not look at the economy in such way. We're not trying to damage the economy of others. We're trying to protect our own. And
We in terms of the American administration you're speaking
of
here about?
yes, the U.S. government, correct, and the people of the United States as well. Like this is something that is needed today to protect U.S. businesses, U.S. industry, and rebuild the U.S. industry that once upon a time led the world in manufacturing. Now it's almost non-existent,
Mm.
and that is not healthy. That's not okay. And it's the right of any country to protect its own industries, to protect its own businesses. And I'll give you an example. I mean, I've used this on another television yesterday, and I think it helped create the image. Imagine you deal with a merchant down the street from where you live, and they had a broken scale. And every time they sold you a kilo, they charged you for half a kilo. Now the merchant figured out the problem and fixed the scale. That is not an aggressive measure. It's something that he needs to protect his business and protect his livelihood. This is
This,
what we're doing right now. We're fixing our scale because our scale has been broken for a long time.
but this is from the American point of view,
Of
not
course.
from the other side's point of view, that is, of course, including China and other European countries. But anyway, if we have seen China adopt by boosting tech independence and deepening ties with countries in the global south, could this signal a permanent global power shift?
It's interesting that you mentioned this, and we need to put this in perspective. The zero or near 0% China has enjoyed for decades in tariff policy, and US tariff policy, was designed for, first of all, during the Cold War era, and for a China that's greatly underdeveloped. Now, China sees itself, and the world sees it, and it is a global competing power, competing with the US and the European Union and European countries. And obviously, as you mentioned, they're developing their own technology. They are an advanced, stable economy. So how would they expect to be treated like a developing nation at this point? This is the imbalance we keep talking about. We have countries that are now directly competing with us. However, we need to give them some concessionary uh, tariff rate while they charge American goods uh, many folds more what we charge on their good. That is not sustainable. So now China, if again we are not adversarial in this case, we're trying to protect our own economy. Now, if China wants to expand, research and develop, that's their right to do it. And honestly, I'd prefer for them to do R&D than what they've been doing for years, which is steal American intellectual property and American patent and American inventions. And it's healthy for them to actually create their own technology instead of taking it from others through espionage or other aggressive means.
Mhm. Now, Trump's rhetoric has returned to an America first stance. It has been in the first term and it is continuing on. Now, how does this affect US credibility with its allies and trading partners? And I'm not speaking just about China now, of course.
Of course, Canada, European Union, Mexico, other parts of Asia, Japan. We don't know yet. It's unclear. Now, the first step was imposing the new tariffs. The second step will be the exemptions. You will see plenty of exemptions to these tariffs. We've seen few already being discussed and being implemented, specifically integrated circuits and like computer chips, technology. These things we cannot just stop or impose tariffs on and expect minuscule impact to market.
If I may
Yeah.
continue the question by asking you,
Mhm.
how would that reflect on the US interests and the US economy?
Again, it's still unclear. The US stock market reacted very aggressively and very violently to the announcements. We will see how things develop in the next few days and few weeks. But obviously, there will be policies and, as I mentioned, exemptions to protect vital sectors. And again, a lot of people look at this as an aggressive move. I see it as an opportunity. Let me give you an example, and using China and Egypt as an example. Now, China can manufacture a product, some random product, for $1. They used to get zero and they used to be able to send it to the US for $1. Uh, Egypt, based on their labor market, technology, etc., can manufacture the same product for $1.25. Now with the new tariffs, Egypt is actually competitive against China. So a lot of countries should look at the benefits from this in access to U.S.
Definitely,
market. That was never possible.
But we cannot compare the exports of Egypt to that of China to the United States, of course. So the comparison is not really imbalanced
We should
here.
have the imagination here to look at diversifying the global trade outside of China. It makes zero sense to have one factory in the world, especially when that factory, China, manipulates currency, acts aggressively, steals your ideas and your new technology. That's not fair. So now countries like Egypt, other countries in Africa, Asia, Southern America can actually compete in the US market. And this is good news.
So if you speak about good news, let me here speak about also bad news because it's expected also. What do you think would be the dangers of the supply chain worldwide or the supply chain fragmentation, particularly for critical sectors like the semiconductors, for instance, or the EVs? We're speaking here about the AI at large.
Again, when it comes, two things need to be clear. These are tariffs for US imports. So this is only for products that are going to the United States. This does not affect a product made in China and being sent to France, for example, or Egypt. That's
again,
let me here.
However, let me here reiterate the question. I'm speaking about the supply chain worldwide, and how would those new tariffs reflect on the ability for supply chain, particularly when it affects the economies of the other partners?
Right. That's still unclear as well. We will see a shakeup. We will see things change over time. Again, we will see factories fold in China or Vietnam and factories open in Egypt or Nigeria, for example. That is what will end up happening. And obviously, as we really would like to see factories opening in the US. So I see this as a multi-phase issue or process.
Mm-hmm.
Tariffs were imposed, and now we're going to see a plethora of exemptions on certain products, allowing for American manufacturing and other global manufacturing to ramp up and fill the gap.
Mm-hmm.
This is what will likely end up happening. Remember, as I mentioned, this is not, this only affects the US market, but the US market is the greatest market in the world. So it's a huge market, it's an important market. And again, going back to your supply chain, it's very unclear. Nobody has been able to successfully model this yet because it's so complex and covers so many sectors and industries. It's very hard. Yeah, like we've seen in COVID, we've had very clear indicators like oil, but we had a lot of surprises like semiconductors.